Welcome everybody. Morning. Lovely to see you all again. And I guess the benefit of Zoom is that we're all sitting in front of our screens, cozy with our coffees, and not having to brave the winds. Goodness me, they've been kind of lashing around us for the last couple of days. No doubt, though, we'll be desperate to get out sooner rather than later, and it's good to see there's a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. I was being loyal this morning, Simon, so I was reading STV News, and it was good to hear or to read that you were reporting that for business confidence in Scotland is the highest it's been since the pandemic. So feels like there's a bit more optimism in the air. And I noticed from my own inbox the flood of emails from bars and restaurants with deals and booking offers and things like that. I didn't realize I'd subscribed to so many. I'm not sure what it said about my life pre-pandemic. But there's certainly plenty of choice when we start to get out and about again. So anyway, good that I've been on your site already. So a good segue into STV. I'm delighted to welcome Simon Pitts, who's the Chief Executive of STV, our guest speaker this morning. And we were talking earlier, just as you guys were in the waiting room, how much change has happened in the last 12 months. So really interesting to hear how that has changed the business models of broadcasting. I think it's fortunate, having looked at Simon's biography, that he's got quite a long career in TV, and also he was quite a key figure in developing that digital development of television. So I'm sure it's been in safe hands the last few months. But like many aspects of life, during the pandemic and actually before, things constantly evolve. We're experiencing TV on new devices. There's apps. We've got better technology. I was reading that the prices of TVs have actually dropped. So we're able to access better quality televisions, and of course then there's emerging competition from the subscription video on demand. And again, as we were talking earlier, whilst there's many challenges, there are also lots of opportunities as a result of that, nudging us to keep up. Interesting that whilst 84% of Brits still prefer to watch TV programs on a TV, 40% of 16 to 24-year-olds prefer to watch it on a non-TV device. So it'll be really interesting, Simon, to hear, how much you've got to respond to that, and how much you're influencing as well as responding to the changes. I was also reading that once family entertainment was the main driver for watching TV, and it seems now we're all obsessed with reality TV. And sort of, I always feel it's just that kind of voyeuristic view of other people's lives. So I think we've got a lot of interesting themes to cover this morning. Simon's going to give us a bit of an overview of his background. I think we've got a film, some slides, and then after that I've got a couple of gentle questions to ease him in, and then hopefully we'll have some time just after 10 to open it up to the audience. So Simon, if you're ready, I think we can absolutely kick off, if that's all right. I'll go on mute. Over to you.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? I had to put myself on mute there for a minute because there was an enormous crashing sound outside as they emptied the bottle bank, which I didn't think that was a very good start to the session, but it's a good insight into lockdown at least. Well, look, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm looking forward to telling you a little bit about what we've been doing over the last 12 months at STV to support our viewers, our advertisers, but also our local communities and our people through this extraordinary time, as well as how we're getting on as a business and our plans for the future. And then, of course, answering any difficult Paxman-like questions you might have. So we've obviously got lots to look forward to, but it's clearly also been a very challenging 12 months, and also a defining 12 months for all of us, and certainly for our business. Anyone who doubted the enduring power and the relevance of broadcasting, and in particular public service broadcasting, doesn't do that anymore, given the role the public broadcasters have played in bringing the nation together, in keeping people informed and entertained, and not to mention the role in conveying public health messages around COVID. And I'm very proud of broadcasting's role in that. I'm proud of our part in that, how the team have all stepped up to support each other, support our advertisers and our local communities when they needed us most. We reported our financial results for 2020 a few days ago. And as you'd expect, we suffered a significant profit decline last year, down 19%. But that doesn't tell the full story. And we are now starting to come through this pandemic with some confidence. In the end, advertising revenues were down by 10% across the full year, illustrating how resilient, I suppose, TV advertising has been. We're now starting to see signs, as Liz was saying, that trends are starting to pick up in March and in April as business confidence slowly begins to come back. We did, as a company, access the furlough scheme last year. We topped up STV colleagues to 100% of salary throughout. But earlier this month, we announced that we're returning all furlough monies to government, given that we still managed to make a profit in the year, and we think that's the right thing to do. And what's also encouraging, that despite all the disruption, we've actually managed to accelerate the delivery of our strategy over the last 12 months. So we achieved the one key target we set ourselves 3 years ago, to deliver a third of our profit from new areas by the end of 2020. And now our job, having laid those strong foundations, I suppose, for growth, is just to go even faster, if we possibly can, given all the change that's happening around us. And just to take you through the headlines of that across the three main parts of our business: broadcasting, digital, and our production business, STV Studios. Starting with broadcasting, we've obviously delivered record viewing figures in the last little while. Now, clearly in a world of lockdown, we shouldn't be breaking out the bunting when our viewing figures go up. We've had rather a captive audience. But when they consistently go up more than the competition, that is grounds for some optimism, and that has been the case with us in the last couple of years. And you can see on the chart in the top left, you can see we're stretching our lead over BBC One. We like to point that out as often as possible. As the most popular peak time TV channel in Scotland, our viewing was up 14% last year. Top right, we've grown our audience every month for the last 12 months, even during non-lockdown months. So this isn't just a lockdown phenomenon. And bottom left, the STV News at 6 is now some way ahead as the most popular news programme in Scotland, stretching that lead even further in 2021. And the bottom right chart makes a slightly different point, that even though we all know how much streaming is growing through the success of Netflix and Amazon and Disney+, it's also worth remembering that broadcast TV still makes up over 70% of all viewing to the TV set. And that was even in 2020 in lockdown months. And just turning to the Scottish advertising market for a minute, we launched a £10 million growth fund, we called it, 3 years ago, to make TV advertising more affordable, more accessible for Scottish SMEs. And we have since then done over 550 deals, attracting over 230 new advertisers to television, businesses that had never advertised on TV before. And when COVID hit, we doubled that growth fund from 10 million to 20 million pounds, and managed to help 91 new Scottish businesses last year advertise their products and services on screen during the worst downturn any of us have ever seen. This year, we're launching a number of new offshoots of that fund for local business, a new £1 million green fund that will reward Scottish advertisers who have a sustainable message, a product, or an objective. We've also ring-fenced another £1 million of advertising for an inclusion fund for advertising campaigns championing ethnic diversity and inclusion right across Scotland. And we've already had very significant interest in both initiatives. And if there's anyone on this call this morning that thinks they might fit the bill, then don't hesitate to drop me a line afterwards. To make it easier also for high street businesses in particular to engage with us, we're launching a self-service portal where businesses can get an instant quote for a new campaign, like you would a quote for car insurance on a price comparison site. And we've called that Growth Fund Plus, rather unimaginatively, but it's a new product also that will help combine STV advertising with STV Player on-demand advertising for the first time to give existing clients incremental reach and impact in their campaigns. And that just really tells you that we know we need to pull all the levers we possibly can to help kickstart the Scottish economy. And that's what we're going to do. It's worth saying as well, I think, that we've all been reminded about what actually matters over the last year, of our role, certainly as broadcasters, in keeping people informed and bringing the nation together, but also that we can and we must use our privileged position and the power of TV to do good things and to affect change, whether that's supporting our local communities and charities. And as the tape said, we distributed over £3.7 million to hundreds of Scottish charities over the last 12 months, or raising awareness of issues like mental health through our Britain Get Talking campaign and our local partnership with Scotland's mental health charity SAMH, or bringing about what we have to ensure is positive, lasting change in how we represent the diversity of our viewers and our communities, both on and off screen. It's just vital that we use our position and our platform to help lead the way. And as part of that, I'm delighted that earlier this month, we launched a wide-ranging sustainability strategy, STV Zero, to become a net zero carbon business by 2030, including a number of stretching targets around energy usage, waste management, program making, advertising, and using our platform to raise awareness of sustainability issues, all in the run-up to Glasgow proudly hosting COP26, obviously, in November. And then turning briefly to digital, and as Liz says, this is becoming an ever more front and center part of our business, and it's really flourishing for us. So streams, viewing, ad revenue have all grown strongly these last 3 years. We're now the fastest growing broadcaster streaming service in the UK. You can see in the boxes across the bottom that 2020 was a step change year for us. And again, you could say, of course it was. Of course your digital viewing went up in a year of lockdown. But again, we've looked at the benchmarks. We've grown faster than any other UK broadcaster. We've added nearly 3,000 hours of new programming to our player in the last couple of years, including over 150 box sets, 50 different dramas from Britain and around the world. And we hope there's something now for everyone on the player, because there really needs to be if we're going to compete properly. And then just turning finally to production, where we've been encouraged by our progress so far. 2020 was our most successful year yet, creatively, with 19 new commissions, including 16 series. And as a result, we are now in production on shows for 11 different TV channels, which is a new record for us. And the key really to building a successful business here in Scotland is winning returning series that come back time after time, rather than making one-off shows, as great as they can be sometimes. And that's also the key to developing the local creative economy too, because that's what boosts training and development and jobs and keeps Scottish talent working in Scotland rather than having to go south to find regular work. And that's why we're delighted to be making some big new shows in Scotland. We're about to start filming in Glasgow on a new 6-part prison drama called Screw. Our most recent commission, Murder Island for Channel 4, is about to start filming on a Scottish island in the next few days. An ambitious competition format based around a murder plot that's written by a famous crime writer, where members of the public take on the role of a detective and have to solve a murder inside a week. We're really excited about that one. And then when we set out our new growth strategy 3 years ago, we agreed the 3 priorities that would guide us for the next while, whether that's making the very best of our broadcast business, which still attracts the lion's share of all our viewing and is very much the engine room of the business, driving digital growth to make sure there is an STV for everyone, and then turning STV Studios into a world-class production business, making high-quality drama, factual, entertainment shows, not just for the UK terrestrial channels, but also for the global streaming services too. And that plan, that 3-pronged strategy, remains the right plan for our business. But as I say, given the pace of change around us, absolutely vital that we go even faster. And then just to conclude, that's the reason we think it's the right time for us to invest to grow our business. We are investing £30 million over the next 3 years into our digital and our studio strategies, with a view to doubling the size of STV Player in terms of viewing, users, revenues. And then in our studios business, we're being even more ambitious, targeting a 4-fold growth in revenue versus where we finished 2020, and trying to double the number of returning series that we make. And taken together, our aim is at least 50% of our operating profit will come from these new areas by the end of 2023, up from a third today, delivering what we hope is going to be a much more diversified, more balanced business that can compete and be a success story for the long term. That's the plan anyway. Liz, back to you.
I will just unmute myself. Thank you very much for that, Simon. Gosh, pretty impressive growth figures there. I'd like to kind of probe a little bit on those a bit further on, but I guess for me, I always like to just find out a little bit more about the person. So can I start off really interested in what attracted you to a career in TV, and has your career sort of followed the path you thought it would?
No. In short, I've never really had much of a career plan. I mean, I did modern languages at university, which qualified me to go on holiday to France and or Germany for no more than a week to 10 days before I ran out of lingo. And I worked in the European Parliament after that as a researcher on media stuff, because I was very interested in TV and I was very interested in politics, and this was a good combination of the two. And I got to travel, and I lived in Brussels and Germany for a bit, and I loved it. And although a European civil servant is not a career that is any longer open to people, unfortunately, it was a wonderful time. And at that point, I got to know that TV broadcasters were heavily influenced by what happened in Brussels. Lots of the laws that govern how, not just TV, obviously every other business worked, were made in Brussels. And I was doing media policy, and I got to know lots of broadcasters, and I found my way to ITV. And 20 years later, I've done lots of different jobs in telly, always moving on to the next one just before they've worked out that I couldn't do the one before. And it's been wonderful, and I've been able to combine, and I really love TV. That's why I'm working TV. You can, we all have hopefully choices to determine what we want to do, and I really wanted to do something that I was excited about, and that's what drove me to TV. I love the combination of business, because it is a business, and anyone tells you that it's magic how these programs get made and it's creativity. It's not. It is a business and subject to the same rules, but it's also a lot of fun, and it's full of lots of exciting, engaging, fun people trying to follow their dreams and make great shows and make an impact. And it's wonderful to be part of, actually. So that's why I was attracted to it. And I'm very proud to be at STV. It's full of great people trying to do the right thing, and to both inform people, and we've never seen a time when that's been more important in the last 12 months, giving people trusted news and information. I mean, if you turned on Netflix and Amazon, you wouldn't know there was a global pandemic going on. I mean, they're wonderful. I watched them too, lots of brilliant shows, but we also needed broadcasters to reflect what was going on in the world. And that's what's been happening in the last 12 months on the public broadcasters, and provide some escapism. And we've all needed that in spades over the last 12 months. And we've been delighted to be trying to do our bit to give people a laugh and something else to think about in amongst all the serious stuff that we've all been dealing with. So that, in a nutshell, is why I'm excited to be in TV, and why I still am excited to be in it.
Good. There's an interesting point you make. As much as you say that you've loved TV, and there's the production side, the creative side, it is a business. At what point did you realise you were a leader, or you had that business acumen to not just be in that production creative part, but to actually lead the organisation? Was there a light bulb moment you thought, yeah, I can do this? Or is it how did you develop that?
Ooh, when I get to that point, I'll let you know. No, there was no light bulb moment at all. I knew that I moved jobs quite a lot in ITV, doing different things. And that's the benefit of anyone who's moved around in a company and stayed in the same place for a bit. I mean, the danger is you get a bit sort of pigeonholed, but the opportunity is that you get to move around. You're trusted to go and do different things within that business because people know you, and that's what gave me the confidence to try new things, being trusted with some responsibility. But I knew that I liked responsibility. I liked being in charge of stuff and being accountable for it. And I think that's the key word. So I spent quite a lot of my time being an advisor, and I realized to bosses, and that is rewarding up until the point when you can't see it through because it's not really your decision to make the final call. And I got a bit frustrated at that. So I guess I wanted to have a go at being the one who was accountable. And you never quite know whether that's going to work or not, and the jury's still out. But it brings a bit of not a burden, but it brings a real sense of responsibility, as everyone on this call will know. But it's also very liberating because you have to make a decision and trust your colleagues and all those good things. So that I guess I realized that I wanted to be accountable for stuff, because that is the way in which you can make an impact and change things. So that's what drew me to, I suppose, leadership roles.
And how would you describe your leadership style?
Oh, that's a good question. I try to lead by example. So I try not to ask people to do things that I wouldn't do myself or I haven't done before. Or indeed, we're a small organisation. We all get stuck in, and there's very little hierarchy. I know everyone always says this, I try to be myself, and to try to keep things light as well. At times we are living in serious times, and that requires serious consideration of a lot of what we do. But people also need to understand that their bosses are humans and feeling exactly the same thing as they're feeling, because this has been a stressful and an anxious time. So we've tried to communicate as much as possible and as regularly as possible, and to acknowledge that we don't know the answers to all the questions we're being asked as a business or as individuals, but we've tried to do that with integrity and authenticity, and honesty. And I hope that I'm that sort of leader. But really, Liz, you should ask the people that work there. Come back and say I'm a total nightmare, probably, and then I'll have to hang up.
No, I'm sure. I mean, with those kind of results, that's a team working very well together. And it's interesting, I've seen your 3-point strategy. It's really clear. You get a feeling that everybody knows what what they have to achieve. So, going kind of to the organisation, really interesting to see the growth figures. Interesting to see how you're kind of overtaking BBC, doing better than the BBC. And I'm really fascinated. We can see TV evolving, and obviously that's been accelerated in recent months. But I was looking at some of the figures. Sort of entertainment has grown by 283%, leisure programming 870%. What's the difference? You know, what is entertainment and leisure in terms of programming? Why has that grown so much, and what do you think is making you so successful at the moment compared with your competitors?
Did I mention we were beating the BBC? I thought I'd hardly mention.
I thought I'd throw that in again.
I only mention it for as long as it's true, and when they're beating us in a few months' time, I'll be very quiet on the matter. But look, I think the last 12 months has shown us, first of all, that people really need trusted news information. And so viewers have flocked to the terrestrial channels that have given them real-time information about what's going on in their lives, and particularly, you know, not just in the UK, but for us in Scotland and in our local communities with our variants of our different news programs. And we've seen that in the viewing figures. And we've also seen that that's been at the same time as there's been quite a lot of, as brilliant as the internet is for so many things, there's been quite a lot of misinformation online, I would say, about the pandemic, about vaccinating against the pandemic, and that has been very unhelpful. And I think people have therefore relied even more on the impartiality and information provided by the terrestrials. So you've seen news audiences grow massively, but you've also seen entertainment and drama audiences, as you say, really go through the roof because people need escapism. And I guess if you looked at the list of the top 15 shows on the STV player, actually 14 out of 15 in 2020 were drama shows. So people have wanted to be taken away into a different world, to forget temporarily, you know, the hardness of difficulty of what they're going through, and they've wanted excitement and different world. They've also wanted, you know, a nostalgia, warm baths of nostalgia. We've seen shows like Take the High Road and Taggart and Rebus really grow on our platform. You know, they're 40 years old, some of them. In entertainment, those big moments that bring people together have been very important these last 12 months. So Strictly was huge on the BBC. Saturday Night Takeaway on at the moment, and the previous series last year was really big when lockdown had just hit. And then, of course, in leisure and stuff, as you say, Liz, there's been a load of DIY and makeover shows that are capturing the sort of thing we're all doing right now, without any means of leaving our houses or gardens. So there's been a big push actually in you know, DIY, SOS, and changing rooms and this, that, and the other. So you're really seeing growth there as well. And of course, the daytime shows have really grown because, in a way that we've never seen before, because people are at home. And you know, we're assuming that our daytime audiences are going to go down a little bit this year. But that will be a good thing, because that will mean that the place is opening up and that we're all allowed out of our houses. But no, and for us, our focus is on big entertainment shows, 9 o'clock dramas. Our soaps perform really well. Scots, believe it or not, watch 10 to 15% more TV than anyone else in the UK. And having lived here for 3 years, I could give you a lot of pseudoscience about why I think that's the case. It's because it rains more. But it's also because of commuting times are shorter. People are at home slightly earlier. You know, people watch more soap, Coronation Street, Emmerdale, in Scotland than they do in Manchester and Leeds, where Emmerdale and Coronation Street are from. The 9 o'clock dramas are huge in Scotland. True crime is, whether it's a documentary or it's drama, is really big. So we try to focus there as well. And the daytime show. So Scots love The Chase. They love Bradley Walsh. at 5 o'clock. And of course, huge consumers of news between 6 and 7 in particular. Those audiences are much bigger. So if you looked at London-based news, we get about 15% or 15 share points higher audiences for our news at 6 than they do in London, which I think just tells you a story of Scots wanting to know what is going on in their own country and in their own parliament. And of course, we've had our own pandemic with our own rules, understandably. So local has been key as well to our audience figures over the last 12 months.
So does that mean then you've been less impacted in the decline in advertising revenues because of that kind of longer, kind of higher viewing figures?
No, sadly not. I mean, we've been quite resilient in the sense that overall we were only 10% down in advertising terms for the 12 months to December last year. And if you'd offered me that in May last year, I would have grabbed both your hands. But we've, for pretty much the first time in the history of TV, there has been a disconnect between audiences and revenue. So normally, money follows audiences. You get a big show, the advertisers come. But that connection has been completely broken in the last 12 months. It's coming back now, which is reassuring. But we had the very odd situation of really high audience numbers and no one wanting to advertise because so many shops were shut, or they just felt it was inappropriate, or they were battening down the hatches and cancelling their marketing budgets because they were worried about the viability of their businesses. Totally understandable. So you may have noticed that we had a very sort of thin rotation of ads back in April, May last year, and the ad count, the brand count, really came down to record lows. But what we're seeing and what's reassuring is that as the market opens up, that connection is remade between advertising and audiences. And so we're seeing that come back early, and we've seen throughout history actually that when there's an advertising downturn or there's a big recession, it's advertising budgets that get cut quickly at the start of that recession, and they come back very quickly at the start of the recovery. They're really quite a good barometer for the overall health of the wider economy, advertising in general. So no, we've been hit. We've never seen a downturn like this in the 60 years of commercial TV, but we're also pretty buoyed at how it came back last year and the prospect of it coming back strongly, we think, this year.
It's interesting. My daughter works for a digital marketing agency in London, and she was saying that the businesses that continue to advertise and keep their advertising spend up are the ones that come out of this stronger and better. So I'm sure that's a good message for you to your advertisers. Well,
we've as you might expect, Liz, we've been making that point, but it's not just from a position of self-interest, although obviously it's completely self-interested, but it also is true. And if you look at, lots of studies have been done of previous recessions, the brands that pushed on are the brands that made a step change in their strategy and growth in the years that followed. Because they were seen as the people that that maintained their brand, that stuck with it, that maybe changed business models and business plans, and doubled down even though it was uncertain. Now, of course, some businesses just simply can't do that, and that is understandable. But if you were in a position to do it and you've done it, all power to you, because you'll get your rewards over the coming months and years.
Thank you very much. I feel I'm hogging the questions here, but I don't see anything in the chat. So does anybody want to come in? If you want to, oh, I do see a raised hand. Christopher Smith. Chris, do you want to come in with a question?
Yes, thanks, Liz. Hi, Simon. Thanks for that presentation. I knew STV was doing well. I didn't realise quite how well. This is Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce, so I'm going to ask the Edinburgh-Glasgow question. I watch STV News in the evening in preference to the BBC's offering for a number of reasons, but one of them is that the BBC Scotland is basically BBC Glasgow, and STV News has generally done a better job of representing Edinburgh. It seems to me that Edinburgh, for a capital city, is quite underserved in terms of media production and particularly current affairs coverage. I mean, we scarcely even have our own radio station these days. There's not much local output comes from Forth. Do you agree that Edinburgh is underserved in that respect? And can you talk a little bit about STV's activities in Edinburgh?
Thank you, Christopher. Thanks for watching as well. I should probably go around and thank every STV viewer. That's a good time. Well, look, Edinburgh's our capital city, so of course it's got to be properly served. And we're in the lucky position of having two big urban centres right next door to one another. So there's always a bit of rivalry and competition, and that's only right. But we take our news provision around the capital very seriously, and well, A, because it's where quite a lot of news happens and a lot of people live, and B, it's the home of our parliament. So it sets the agenda in so many ways on our news. So we have a dedicated political unit that are based in Edinburgh and an office in Holyrood as well, that we are in the process of beefing up actually rather than reducing. We've got a huge year ahead of us, just as we had a huge year last year with the election and with what comes out of the election. So I think it's crucial that we maintain that, and that viewers don't think that we are somehow broadcasting from only one part of the country. I think that's what differentiates us from the competition. Actually, we've got, we broadcast from Dundee and Aberdeen. We have an office in Inverness, and I hope that our news, while looking pretty seamless to the viewer, I hope properly reflects, with lots of local stories, the local agenda as well as the Scotland-wide agenda. We've also got a current affairs show that we run 4 nights a week, including having just moved the Thursday night into peak time, 7:30, called Scotland Tonight, which is the only daily current affairs show that focuses frequently on news from Edinburgh and Holyrood in particular, setting the agenda. And we'll do a lot in the next few months as we host individual interviews with the leaders of the main parties, as we host a live leaders debate. And then in terms of the wider point about Edinburgh and production, what's been encouraging in the last few months is that we've started to see, the launch of a studio for a start, a dedicated studio in Leith, where dramas can be based, which is a big advantage, I would say. And quite a lot of the investment in physical studios and infrastructure in the last 10 or 15 years has happened within the M25, in and around London, rather than anywhere else. And now with this investment in Edinburgh and one to follow in Glasgow, we've got a home for new shows, a permanent home. And that's a big step forward, I would say. So I'm hopeful that in Edinburgh's case, there is a lot of good stuff to come. And certainly our commitment to Edinburgh is undimmed.
Brilliant, thank you. Thanks for the question, Chris. Having tried to bring the focus to Edinburgh, we're going to have to kind of go back to a bit of focus on Glasgow because of the COP26 that's coming shortly. I see in the chat, Jason, you've got a question around that. Do you want to come in and ask? I can see you there, Jason, if you want to unmute yourself. I can ask for you if you like. Oh, he's quiet. Yeah, Jason's got a question in the chat.
Hello.
Oh, brilliant, there you are. You want to ask your own question.
Liz.
No, that's okay.
Yes, so COP26 is in Glasgow at the end of the year. It's a huge global event, lots of focus on that. So I'm just interested, how does STV plan to capitalise on that and give it good coverage? But also generally, unless I'm missing something, does STV News have a climate or environment correspondent? Does it even have a business editor these days? Is there appetite for those kind of specialist reporter roles, or is everybody a generalist now in news?
That's a good question, and to answer that last one first, yes, we do. We have a climate correspondent called Laura Piper, who is relatively well. She's been with us a while, but she's been focusing on that beat for probably a year or so, and of course that's going to be huge for us. And editorially, COP26 will be big. We'll be doing dedicated programming around it. You know, our regional programming as well as our current affairs strand, Scotland Tonight. I suspect our News at 6 will major on it in the run-up to COP and beyond. And we do see that we have a responsibility to raise awareness around sustainability issues. Of course, we've got to be impartial and continue to challenge all sides of the argument, but we have a privileged place really as a public broadcaster to lead the way here, and that's what's behind our latest strategy around sustainability, around STV Zero. We've set a goal that many other broadcasters have set of becoming net zero by the end of the decade, but that's the end of the decade. You know, what can we do now? So we've got an extensive plan, whether it's program making, where we have to make sure that every program we make, including news and current affairs, is Albert certified, which is our TV kite mark for sustainability, and means that you've made particularly strong efforts to ensure sustainable practices on making shows. We've launched a green fund amongst our growth fund of £1 million of subsidised advertising for Scottish businesses that have a green product or service or message that they want to make famous. We've had lots of interest in that. We have our own internal strategies around reducing business travel by 50% in the next 3 or 4 years, by switching to 100% renewable energy for all our buildings, which I'm pleased to say we've done bar one building so far this year. And of course, just the general waste management culture around our organisation that we need to make sure is just how we do business. So as an organisation, there's a lot we can do. And of course, that's what it's not just the right thing to do, it's what our people want. And they want us to be leading the way or helping to lead the way. And it's also what our shareholders want. So we're excited about that. And we'll be covering it extensively, Jason. We will be able to see COP26 from our building in Glasgow. So it would be remiss of us not to make it a big deal.
Thanks for that question. Really good question in the chat from Maggie Dow, with employability and skills so important, and the future of our workforce. So this is a great question. Maggie, do you want to come in and ask?
Sorry, yes, apologies, I'm having some technical issues there. Basically, I was just wondering, Simon, what you envisage as the training and skills requirements for STV to meet the strategic aims. So you talked about diversifying the portfolio and a growing streaming service in the UK and being part of that future. So that I think it was 70-30, but I guess we could all see that balance being slightly different in the future. Do you think there's changes need to be made to existing qualifications or upskilling resources, and especially how we keep that talent within Scotland? I know you mentioned Leith and the film studio, but in terms of training and skills, what do you see as the future requirements?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Maggie, and it's one of our biggest challenges, I would say, as not just a sector, as a country, at keeping talent here. And in our sector, it's about returning series. So if we have one-off shows, we made a drama in Edinburgh and Greenock 18 months ago called The Victim with Kelly MacDonald, currently in line of duty. And it was great. It was 130 people who were employed with us off-screen and on-screen. 95% of them were Scots. We've got lots of talent here. But then it was 4 episodes and we finished making it within 4 months. And then what are you going to do if there isn't another drama to roll onto, whatever your role might be? So unless we've got a drumbeat of new shows being made here, we are always going to struggle to keep talent here. And when you have a returning series, so I hate to mention this, twice I've mentioned it, but Taggart, 110 episodes, at least 110 murders. Because it ran for so long, it was the training ground for so many writers and directors and producers and all sorts of talent. So it was effectively its own training scheme. And that's what a returning series, a drama, or indeed an unscripted series can do. And you can accompany it with lots of schemes. And we are doing that through the drama we're about to make for Channel 4 called Screw. We're making sure there are sponsorship placements and bursary students that are given the opportunities and to come on and secure their first roles. But really, you only unlock that potential when you have a returning series made at scale. That's what will be the game changer for this market, because even when you look at the individual shows that are being made, if you look at drama, there's only one returning series that is made in Scotland currently, and that is Shetland. The rest are wonderful, but they've been one-offs so far. So that's the goal. In other parts of the sector, so in digital, for example, you need completely different skills, and there we're competing with everyone for talent. So we want software developers and UX designers and coders, and we are competing with Barclays and JP Morgan and every other business out there. And we have to work hard to partner with local institutions, universities and colleges to attract people at a younger age, to open their eyes a bit to the possibilities of working in TV, because it isn't a traditional route for a coder or a developer. They think of other industries way before they think of TV. So it's incumbent on us to really compete. That's why we run a bursary scheme every year for 10 students from Scottish universities and colleges that come from lower income households, to sponsor them to be one of our bursary students. That they will receive money, they get work placements and mentors, and we keep in contact with them all year. And 3 years in, we've got 35 students who are still studying, who are looking, I hope, more favorably on TV as a potential career for them. So you have to be more proactive is the short answer, and get in earlier. I don't know whether it's about changing qualifications or not, but I think establishing firm ties with colleges and universities and schools is absolutely crucial for all our businesses.
Brilliant, really good question there. Oh, they're coming in thick and fast now as we're running out of time, so hopefully we can get a few more in. Very topical, this work from home trend. Anthony, Drew, would you like to come in and ask your question?
Hi, thanks. Hi, Simon. You've obviously, what you presented, shown us that you've had kind of great growth and success, etc., during this lockdown period where people have been working remotely. What are your thoughts or views going forward for STV in terms of that working environment?
Yeah, it's a good question, Anthony, and we're all thinking about how our buildings and how our working methods will change. I guess there are plenty of things that we won't go back to doing, or things that we've learned that we'll keep doing. I'm sure, for example, that we will continue to deploy reporters from home rather than expecting everyone to be milling around the office at all times. We've learnt to run a TV channel remotely in the last 12 months, which we never thought we could do. And while there are roles that are better done from the office, we've all learned that too. Not all of them need to. So what we're in the process of doing is determining our new home and office working patterns right now. But we'll never go back to the way we were. and the need for everyone to be office-based all the time. What we've done is, because we have very different departments, you've got some, a news team who are always on and making a show every day, and then you have a marketing team and you have a studios team who are making shows, but sporadically, is we've asked each of those departments to design how they want to work in future. We've said that the company is going to be very flexible, and that there will be no sort of presenteeism here, or a diktat that you have to be in the office for a certain amount of time. But you have to design how best to work yourselves. And I think we'll end up with people working very flexibly in future, I would say, and that must be the way forward for us. We've also adapted a bit to the stresses of everyone working from home and trying to cope with the split between work and family life. And we, at the start of this year, we decided that we needed to intervene a bit here to make sure that people had a bit more balance in their lives. And you don't want to be too nanny state about it, but we've said, first of all, we've made sure there is mental health provision for everyone, because that is a very real thing, and we've all experienced it one way or another, either ourselves or with colleagues, lots of ups and downs in the last 12 months, and that's here to stay, I would say. So we've tried to make sure that we are talking about that and that we have sufficient support around the organisation. Secondly, we've said that lunchtimes are precious, and please don't organise any Zooms between 12:30 and 2. We've been quite strict about that. And then we've also said that we're really encouraging people not to email after 7 o'clock at night. And there are exceptions, of course there always are. If there's a crisis or the channel falls off air, you can't, I couldn't send an email, therefore I couldn't restore your advert. It's not going to wash. And we've got news teams that work late into the night, but generally we've told people that we are discouraging emails past 7 o'clock, and boy, has that made a difference. So I rarely get an email, from an internal email, past 7 o'clock now, and it used to be all the time. So that can make a difference, and I hope we're only sort of 3 or 4 months into this experiment, but this is important because we are all going to be working in a mixed economy way over the next few years, and it's really hard to switch off when you're at home.
I think that's a really important point, and something that we've been speaking about at the Chamber as well, because the day just seems to get longer and longer, just responding to things. Thank you for that. Just keep my eye on time. There's a couple more questions. Kenneth Redmond, I hope any relation to Phil Redmond, I wonder. You've got a question about how STV promotes its products and services. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, it was just a quick query. I know the STV have got their own sort of way that they advertise and market. I was just wondering if you consider or have using podcasts where you could detail what you could offer, or like services which could help other people. It's probably mainly for my benefit as well, but it was just a general question.
No, it's a good question, Kenneth. And do we haven't done much there, because it's already a hyper competitive market, and we try to be in places where we think we have a chance of winning. And what we have decided, though, is that we're going to do podcasts around news and current affairs. So in a very busy year, such as the one we are facing now politically, that's where we're going to start, because that's where we think we have some expertise. But there are, the podcast market is very, very busy. We've got a noisy neighbour called the BBC, who have already got their tanks firmly on the lawn of that market. But in news and current affairs, we think we can really do things a bit differently. So we're going to have a go there. Yeah. And then, of course, you made reference in your question to other areas. So like the Growth Fund, for example, where we can explain what it is to people. Yeah. We do a lot of that on screen at the moment, where we ask people to get in touch if they have a product that they want to promote. Yeah. But we can do more, I'm sure, Kenneth, with a bit of a how-to guide. So it's a really good idea.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. We've got a minute to go. I see that Fiona's got a comment more than a question. Fiona, has it been answered? Is there anything else you want to very quickly raise with Simon?
It's because I'm such a poor typist, Simon, but also I could never type as quickly as I speak, so I'll slow it down. But like Maggie, I'm from Edinburgh Napier University, and we treasure the relationship we've got with STV. We are that university with the demographic that you talked about, whilst not generalising, but also we do lots of work with you in terms of placements and all of that good stuff across STV creative, journalism, etc. What's really important for us, we're chamber members because we're really connected to business and all of the sectors out there. But what's really important for us at the moment is giving our graduates of 2021, who we're calling class of 2021, reassurance that the sectors they want to join and the industries they want to join are still recruiting. And I just wanted to ask for any top tips for them, because you are hugely popular. Of course, so are your noisy neighbour. And if you were to say, why go to STV and what are you looking for? What would that be?
Well, keep doing what you're doing, because it's brilliant having connections with Napier and other institutions, and there's no substitute for work experience and placements and those connections and in that enthusiasm that comes through whenever I meet any of your students. And I would advise that, and we are still recruiting. News and journalism in general is always changing, and the demands of digital news in particular are very different to what they were even 18 months ago. So we are always looking for people. Well, not always, but we are regularly looking for people. I would encourage your students to do what they're doing. Be pushy. Get out there, email people. Whenever a student emails me and asks for something, and I'm going to regret saying this now, but me and my colleague, we would always reply, because it doesn't happen very often. People always go through the right channels, and sometimes you have to not do that. So I always admire people who just send you an email out of the blue and say, "Can I come and have a chat?" And that's been quite hard in the last 12 months. We've done a bit virtually, but I would always encourage people to get in touch direct and be a bit pushy. Not always easy, but I would encourage people to get on with that. And why come and work at STV rather than BBC? Well, I mean, I barely answer that. Just look at the ratings. I would say, no, look, BBC is also wonderful, and we'll do lots of things with graduates as well. But we like to think we're slightly different in news. This is news from our communities, for our communities, that is based in telling stories about our people. It's not Glasgow calling or London calling. And we pride ourselves on that. We tell the stories behind the news, or at least we endeavour to every time. And if that's what you're interested in, rather than just reporting the news, then please come and knock on our door.
Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And I've stolen 3 minutes of everybody's morning, so I'm going to try and wrap up really quickly. But thank you very much, Simon. You mentioned being yourself when you were describing your leadership style. I think that's come across really strongly, that authenticity that you've brought to this morning. It's been really enjoyable listening to you, and fantastic story. As much as you say you've the euphemistic profit decline, as you described it, it sounds like you've been very resilient in comparison to your competitors, and that forward thinking, constantly looking how to influence the future, I think will stand in very good stead. So thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you, all our audience. Fantastic to have so many questions, some great questions there. Always takes the pressure off me, because otherwise I'm the one constantly trying to think up some questions. So that really kind of gave me a very nice chance to listen and enjoy the session this morning. So thank you very much, everybody, for your questions. And I'm now stealing even more time, so I'm going to say have a good day, and I hope to see you all again very soon. Thank you very much for joining us.